There we go, that's better.
Gotta burn off that pint of ice cream I had.
Dixon, what up, man? Good morning. What you got going on today, man? I don't know if you guys ever noticed. A lot of times I do this. I don't do it as much, but I still do it. Get rid of this little stomach. It was out to there. It was out to there. You know, and then it was completely flat. But gotta burn it off again. That's why when you see me, I'll do this, because the bottom of my shirt tucks under there, and it feels all kind of weird. I'm like, but yeah. Okay. Man. I don't wanna. Well, I do. I'll say this. I do wanna. But for me, man, I'll be honest. I'd rather just be like, you know, when you're young, you just gotta sit around and get up and run, whatever. You know, you get to a certain age, your body isn't as able to burn off food. Number one, and number two, excuse me. You know, you sit down. I know for me, if I sit down too much, you ever get up from the chair, you've been sitting there for a while, you get up from the chair, you're like, ooh, I don't like that feeling. You know, you sit stationary for a while, and then, you know, your muscles start aching, your joints start aching. I don't like that. And the only way I've noticed that when that goes away is when I'm exercising. The moment I start exercising, I'm sitting down for a long time. I get up, hey, no problem. I'm not aching, bones ain't creaking, the muscles ain't going like it's a rusty, you know, a rusty gate or something like that. You know, but if I stop working out, I feel it creep up. You know, as time goes by, it gets worse. I don't like that. Plus, I got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. I got 4 kids. Me and my wife have 4 kids. My oldest is 19. And then there's a 17, well 16, he's going to be 17 in August. There's a 16, there's a 14, and there's an 11. My youngest is 11. The girls are bookends. Girl, boy, boy, girl. But, that being said, I gotta be on my toes, man. You know, because my oldest one, you know, he gets kind of froggy sometimes. And I'm like, all right, bro, don't try me. You know, try Jesus. You know, try your favorite candy. Don't try me. You know, don't do that. Don't play with me like that. I'm your dad and I'm your friend, but I'm not one of the little friends out there. You know. So, you know, but he's a good kid. He's just feeling his manhood. You know. He's feeling his manhood. You know. He's always trying to box me or whatever. You know. And I always got to show him that I would dust him off easily. Quite easily. Quite easily. You know. But he doesn't know that. He's, you know, he's a young man. You know. Really, I'm trying to get him to, and he wants to, but he's got a lot going on as far as school and everything. Studies and what have you. But I want him to be able to make out time. You know, school's out, but he still has studies. But I want him to make out some time. Plus, he's like, my older son, he's ridiculously smart. It's guy's building websites on his phone. You know, stuff like that. Incredibly smart. Like literally building websites with his phone. Not going to Wix or wherever, but building websites with code on his phone. Well, he'll kids do what you do. They do what their parents do. He grew up with, okay, my dad's got a gym downstairs. Grew up with that. So he's gonna want to do that. I know my other son's gonna definitely want to do that. So, you know, I just want him to get healthy. That's my thing. I don't try to push it on him. Never push anything on a kid. You know, he'll grow up to regret it. You know. But yeah, I have to stay healthy. Plus, I don't want to be that dude. Hey, Shani. You know, walking my daughter down the aisle in a wheelchair or with a walker. You know, I got married late in life. You know, my wife and I had our oldest child when I was 41. 41. I got married at 39, had our first child at 41. You know, I'll be 60 in a month. A month and 10 days. A month and 8 days. I'll be 60. My youngest is 11. So I don't have a choice. I gotta be healthy. You know. You know, I'm trying to see my great-grandkids, forget my grandkids. Not just my grandkids, my great-grandkids. You know. And a lot of stuff I still want to see. You know. It's like my wife's grandfather. I didn't really realize this, but my oldest son is Mark James, and my younger son is Davis James. And what he got a kick out of was, well, like I call, instead of Mark Jr., I don't like that. We call him James. We want him to have his own identity. So he gets a kick out of it. That one son is like, James, come here. The other son is like, Davis, come here. That's his last name. His name is James Davis. So he gets a kick out of it. You know. But it's like seeing your genes pass through not only to your kids and your grandkids, but to your great-grandkids. It's wild. I want to experience that. You know. He just recently passed. You know. But I'm glad he was able to see that. You know. Every time he heard it, he was like, man, I can't get over it. James and Davis. You know, he used to say that all the time. Because his name is James Davis. You know, so it was dope. You know. Him being able to experience that. You know. I'm trying to bust a sweat. I feel kind of heated. I feel like I've been riding this thing for so long, I can't bust a sweat. You know? I actually started a new routine. 30 to 40 minutes on this, and put on a 40-pound backpack, and I spent 15, I think yesterday I spent a little over 15 minutes, you know. So usually I don't like, I used to only do a half hour on this. Now I'm like, I don't like to do, I don't know. I don't like doing a half hour. I like doing more. I want it eventually half hour on this, half hour on that. You know, on my elliptical. You know. And like I said, I kind of increase the intensity. I put on a 40-pound pack. You know. Elliptical, all it is a ski machine. You know, it's a cross-country skiing machine. That's all it is. You know. You know, that's all it is, a cross-country ski machine. You know, but it's good exercise, and it's not as jarring on your bones. You know. Although, eventually I want to get a treadmill. You know. You know. But also I'll say this. If you want your kids, I say this all the time, kids do what you do. You want your kids to eat healthy and to be healthy, you gotta eat healthy. You gotta be healthy. You know. It was wild because eventually, like, I wasn't there at the time. I can't remember where I was. I was either at a rehearsal or something. And my wife was doing the grocery list. I eat a lot of salmon, a lot of tilapia, a lot of kale, a lot of spinach, and crushed almonds. And she goes, yeah, we gotta buy more fish. I was like, why? She said, you know, my oldest son is named after me. We call him James. We'll call him Jay. She's like, Jay wants to start eating more fish. I said, okay. You know, and my 14-year-old, a lot of times, I think he's more prone to health and fitness. I think the light bulb, went off in his head, and he was like, yeah. And he asked, but he has an allergy. He's allergic to peanuts, and he used to be allergic to eggs, but he kind of grew out of it. But he's allergic to peanuts and different nuts. So we had him tested, or we did the homemade test where we gave him a little piece of an almond. I can't remember, but almonds, no, he got tested, and he's not allergic to almonds. So they said, Dad, can I eat the way you eat? I said, yeah, I don't care. You know. So I noticed that, a lot of times you don't have to tell kids. If you want them to do good things, you don't have to necessarily tell them. You have to lead in that. You know, especially boys. You gotta lead in that. You want them to be healthy? You want them to eat healthy? You gotta lead in that. It can't be a do as I say, not as I do. You know. Kids learn from your example, especially boys. Girls is a little different. Boys are a little stupid. We need to look at somebody. That's why it's easier for a man to raise a girl to be a woman than it is for a woman to raise a boy to be a man. Because a boy needs an example of being a man. Women, a lot of it is instinctive. You know. So there's not so much teaching for a man who has a little girl to raise as much as it's putting the little sister up on game. Put the young lady up on game. impart some wisdom in her. You know what I mean? And that's just from personal experience. Like, just for instance, my daughters, I never taught them to play with dolls. They instinctively wanted to play with dolls. Like, they instinctively exhibited female behavior, motherly behavior. That was instinctive. You know, my wife didn't teach you, oh, this is, you should, no. You know, they were like, I want a doll. I want this doll. I want that doll. You know, and they did the whole, oh, treating the doll like a baby. And, you know, that was instinctive. Boys, we're kind of dunce, man. We're kind of thick-headed. We need to see somebody. We need to see an example. That's why young men who don't have fathers in their lives, they end up in prison. The reason why is because they end up going to the streets. Our father's an example. You know. So, you know. But yeah, you know. And it's crazy because my dad wasn't around. And it was something, my mom knew that. She said she kept my uncles around and stuff like that. You know. Because she was like, I need someone to help my son become a man. She knew it wasn't enough to say, you're the man of the house. You know, it's like, how am I going to be a man? So she kept men around me to kind of guide me. You know, so I could look at this, okay, this is what you're supposed to do as a man. That's what you're supposed to do as a man. Like a lot of loyalty, a lot of the loyalty that I learned was from my uncle. A real loyal dude. Stand-up dude, loyal dude. He's a good dude. I learned a lot from him. You know, he had morals and values. He had principles. He taught me at all times you got to protect the women of the house. Like, for instance, this is my mom. My mom was a single mom. It was me, my two sisters, and my mom. And I grew up in a 9-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. 3 floors. So my uncle came home from Vietnam, and he stayed with my grandmother. He stayed with us. My grandmother owned the house, and when she died, she left it to my mom. But he stayed with us until he got back on his feet. He went to college. He became a chemical engineer for DuPont. You know, but in that time, you know, he was living with us. And my mom was a single mom. She was a young single mom. She was still in her 20s, late 20s, like, she was probably like 30, 29, like 29, 28, 29. With 3 kids, so she was still young. She was dating. She dated this guy named Mac Joe. And Mac Joe put his hands on my mama. Why did he do that? Mind you, both of my uncles went to Vietnam. My Uncle Randy, we were living in Jersey. My uncle, like I said, he had 3 floors. My uncle had the 3rd floor. We had the 1st floor and the 2nd floor. My uncle had the 3rd floor. My uncle heard about it. So Mac Joe came over to apologize to my mom. She lets him in. She lined him up. We had a glass wall. It was like the kitchen over here. This was the living room. The kitchen was over there. And the living room was here. Kitchen here, living room. And then, to go to the 2nd floor, you go up the flight of stairs right there. It was like a wall. The wall here, the flight of stairs. And this wall separates the kitchen from the stairway. And there's glass. It was like panes of glass, mirrored glass on that wall. And I remember I went upstairs, ate my Lucky Charms cereals. I remember walking down the stairs. And I walked down the stairs to my uncle having this guy hemmed up against the wall with his hand in his face like this. And, you know, you're a little kid. I was like maybe 11, like 10 or 11. I looked over and I was like, ooh. All I heard was, pow, and I heard glass break. Then I looked back over, and this guy, Matt Joe, was holding his face like this, running out the door. I ran back upstairs. I was like, my name is Bennett. I ain't in it. But, like, I saw it. Later on, I found out the guy's face had stitches outside and inside. You know. This is a guy who's fresh out of Vietnam. So you know he has rage pent up in him. He hit that man with an overhand right. Because I asked him later, I was like, I asked him when I was like, you know, it's years later. I was like probably like 25, 26. I said, yeah, man, I remember that. He was like, you saw that? I said, you didn't see it? He was like, I was so focused. I didn't even realize that, you saw it. I said, well, I didn't see it. I heard it. I saw it beforehand. You had your hand in his face, and you was like, well, I heard you put your hand on my sister. Didn't I tell you? I backed up, and I heard, bow! And I heard the glass break. I looked over, and you were looking that way, and he was running out the door. You were looking at it. You watched him run out the door. He was like, you saw all that? I said, yeah. I said, what you hit him with? He said, I hit him with an overhand right. I was like, sheesh. But in that, I learned, okay, protect women at all costs. Protect the women of my family, the women of your family at all costs. Your sisters, your daughters, your mama. You know, I remember somebody broke in our house. And my uncle didn't have his guns at the time. Somebody, like I said, he was on the 3rd floor. He broke in our, two guys broke in our house. And my uncle had a machete. All the lights were out. I don't know how my uncle caught this. But my uncle grabbed the machete and was going to chop them up and bury them in the backyard. They were cowering in the corner, and my uncle had a machete. Like, and you better not move. Tell them now, I remember, and you better not move. They climbed in through my window. I was asleep at the time. All I heard was, no, and it was dark. And I just kind of went back to sleep. And then my mom was like, wake up, Mark, wake up. And I'm waking up. There's other things that happen. I don't want to go into that. But next thing I know, the cops are here, and they lock them dudes up. It was my uncle with a machete and 2 dudes. My uncle, he wasn't nothing to mess with. Him or my Uncle Randy. You know, they both were. They were wild. You know, they were not to be played with. But it's those kind of examples I had growing up. You know, what happens is, you know, what happened is I eventually, you know, I passed those lessons on to my sons. You know, yeah, I've got some interesting stories, some wild stories. Yup. Yo, check it out. There's a saying. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make soft times. Strong men make easy times. Easy times make soft men. Soft men create hard times. Then hard times again make strong men. And that's true. You know, that's definitely true. You know. I can't remember where I heard that from, but it's true. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make easy times. Easy times make soft men. Soft men create hard times. Then hard times again create strong men. Alright, it's been a half hour. See, I hate this because it's getting good to me now. Now I don't want to stop riding. I think I'm going to ride for like 15 minutes more. And then hop on the elliptical. Put on a backpack and hop on the elliptical. Crazy thing is, I'm not even close to busting a sweat, man. It's crazy because I've had a crazy life, and at times it was unbearably hard. Like I've been homeless, eating out of garbage cans, like homeless, not couch surfing, homeless. Like in wintertime, it's 2.5, 3 feet of snow. I can't go to sleep because I know if I do, I'll die of hypothermia. You walk around all night so you can find a place, a warm place to sleep. I was homeless, you know. But it does make you stronger, man. It makes you just incredibly strong. Because what happens is, no matter what happens, you're like, I've been homeless. This ain't nothing. I don't care how bad it is. Man, I've been homeless. This ain't nothing. That's, you know what I mean? Even if you're not thinking those words, subconsciously it's like, you're like, I got this. You know? You know? So, been through a lot, man. You know? And I'll say this. It helps you that's part of the reason why I came up with the term. Like I tell my kids, there's no such thing as can. Either you don't want to, or you don't know how to, or you just don't want to work for it. But you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to do it, you can do it. You know. I was homeless. I was in prison twice. I've been through a lot. I've been through, had an opportunity to escape. I didn't take it because I knew I would have added an extra 5 years. So I just waited, and it wouldn't have been my fault. It wouldn't have been my doing. I was in a, well, it wasn't prison. It was jail. It was county jail. I was going to court, and I fell asleep. So I'm in the back of the bullpen, sleeping, just chilling with my county khakis on. Next thing I know, I wake up, nobody's there. What the heck is going on? So I'm just sitting there waiting to see guards. Usually there's guards walking in and out. They'll call somebody and that person will go upstairs to see the judge. I'm sitting there for like 20 minutes, nothing happened. So I'm like, real quiet, I don't hear any movement upstairs. Usually you can hear people walking around. The gate's open. So what happens is, I kind of creep out the gate. Now, I'm not shackled, I just got county khakis on. I creep out the gate and I look around, I'm like, I don't see anybody. I sit back down. Another 20 minutes rolls around. What the heck's going on? I creep out a little further. I open the door. I'm like, there's nobody. So I close the door. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Surely somebody will come down. There's no clocks or anything, so you can't tell what happened. Finally, I creep out. Now it's a bullpen, it's metal bars and everything. The door's open. I walk out the bullpen. Walk out the door. And there's a stairway that goes up and it goes out. I walk up the stairway. It's got one of those push things. I push the door open. I look outside. I'm like, it's nighttime. It's like 9 o'clock at night. Nobody's here. So finally, I hear a vacuum cleaner running. I close the door. I go back in. I'm like, somebody's here. I go back. I close the door. Go back in. So I'm sitting down. And I go back in the bullpen. I'm sitting down. The guy, it was a cleaning, it was a cleaning dude. It was a black dude. He's got a vacuum cleaner. He's got his cart with his cleaning stuff. Young dude, he's like my age. He opens the door. He's like, what are you doing here? I said, I'm supposed to be in the county jail. He's like, what? I said, yeah, man, I'm supposed to be in the county jail. He's like, okay. He closes the door. I guess he called, Monmouth County. Like, hey, you got it. You left an inmate here. They come transport me. One of the inmates that I was really, one of the guards I was really cool with. He went to high school with my middle sister. So me and him were cool as it can be considering his inmate and guard. But they come back, they search me, they strip search me, they send me back. About 2 days later, his name's Gerald, Officer Willis, comes over. He's like, yo, Mark, what happened? I said, what do you mean? He's like, man, they left you at the courthouse? I said, yeah. He was like, bro, it was crazy. They thought you escaped. I was like, I was sitting at the courthouse. He was like, but what happened? I said, bro, I fell asleep. I woke up and I explained the whole thing. He was like, no way. I said, yeah, bro. He's like, yeah, man, a couple dudes got fired. A couple dudes got fired for that. I was like, wow. But I didn't run. Because common sense, reasoning, and logic dictates that I was about to get out on, this was, as far as the New York, New Jersey tri-state area, me and another guy were two of the first people to ever get on. It was called ISSP, or ISP, Intensive Supervision Program. It later on became what's called house arrest. It was an experiment, and it actually, I went to court. They were like, okay, he comes from a good family. He just, even the cops that arrested me were like, he comes from a really good family. They came to court on my behalf, and they were like, look, man, like he's a good kid. He just hanging with the wrong crowd, whatever. So then, He said, we're going to give you a diversionary program. It's new. This is what the judge says. Judge Arnone. It's new. And they used to call him No-Go Home Arnone because he was strict. He's like, it's new. I heard good things about you. Good things about your family. It's new. We're going to send you back to the county jail, and we'll have some people contact you. Some representatives contact you. I go back to the county jail and say, look, we're rolling out a new program nationwide. It's called ISP. Would you like to be in it? You feel that you're eligible. You know, you're nonviolent. You know, you're, you know, they were like, you know, we've heard good things about you. There's never any problems, nothing like that. You know, you come from a stable family. We think you'd be a great, a great candidate for this program. And like, in my mind, I was like, I don't care as long as I get out. So I got out. They didn't have ankle monitors. Technology hadn't gotten there yet. This is when cell phones were like the size of a brick. You know, and you only had a certain amount of minutes. And if you kept using it, it got really, really hot. They had the long antennas. This is back then. It was the 80s. This is like 86. 86, yeah. 86, 87. So, I get out. This guy named Paul Shasias. He was my ISP officer. And they were going to put a camera on my phone, but for whatever reason it wouldn't work, you know. So I found out later, this guy would literally sit outside my house with binoculars and watch me. I was like, no way. Because I like years later, I met the guy. I met the guy at like Springdale Bar, this place I used to hang out. And we would go to Springdale. Me, my boy Ronnie Trav, my boys Ronnie, Trav, and Sean. We would go to Springdale, hang out in Springdale until like 2:30. Drive to the train station, hit the PATH train, take it to Penn Station, and go from Penn Station to either the Limelight. At first we used to go to the Limelight, and then we started going to the tunnel. Well, no. At first we started going to the Palladium. Then we started going to the Limelight. I've been to the tunnel. Me and my boy Trav. The tunnel was no joke. The tunnel was a good place to get robbed. Well, it depended on the night. If you went on hip hop night, good place to get robbed. Any other night was fine. You know, but we get there at like, we leave the bar at like 2:30. We get there like 10 minutes after 3. And it will be jumping. Then, the club will close at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Get the PATH train back, go home, and just go to sleep, wake up, do it all over again. You know. So, you know, but yeah. I was at Springdale Bar. We knew the owner, we knew the son, we hung out, we would party with the son. We would party with the bartenders. Like, we were kind of like, you know, part of like the cool dudes. Which was kind of weird because I was never a cool guy. I was always the nerd guy. But, you know, everybody knew us. Plus, it helps if you're a musician. You know, people think just like, well, I'll say back then, if you were a musician, you were cool. And if you were good, you were definitely cool. And if you were good and you had a reputation of like, your reputation pursued, yeah, Mark, oh yeah, you're that dude Mark. Nah, I never met him, but I heard he's really good on drums. Like, that kind of reputation, then you were definitely cool. So I kind of had that reputation, which was weird, because I still think of myself as, to this day, as like the corny nerd. But, I go into Springdale, me and my homeboys, go in and sat at the bar. I usually get like a beer. Or I don't know if you guys remember Zima's. I would get a Zima and just sit down and nurse it, you know. And I saw this guy with gray hair. I'm like, yo, that looks like my ISP officer. And my boy Sean was like, what's ISP? I said, Intensive Supervision Program. He was like, what's that? So I described it to him. He was like, that's like house arrest. It's pretty much a comparison to house arrest. So I said, I just went, Paul. And he turned around. I was like, is that an issue? He was like, Edwards? I was like, yeah. He was like, man, it's good to see you, man. You're looking good, man. It's good to see you. So we got to chopping it up. He ended up working for the state of New Jersey. You know, like he left and he had another job, another position for the state of New Jersey. And he said, yeah, bro. I said, man, how did you know? When I would leave the house, how did you know? He said, bro, I would sit outside your house with a pair of binoculars and watch you. I was like, no. He was like, yeah. I would watch you. I was like, man, that's a heck of a job. He's like, yeah, that's why I left. That's why I got another position. Yeah, that's a rough job. But he's real cool, man. He's real cool. So he was like real cool. You know, he was cool when he was my probation officer. When he was my ISP officer. He was cool there. You know, he was like, I can tell you come from a good family, you're a good kid. You just made some bad decisions. But you're a good kid, you know. So I think what helped me to kind of leave that lifestyle, like the illegal lifestyle, was every time I went to jail, or, you know, times I went to prison, the guards were like, why are you here? It's obvious you're well-spoken. You're a good dude. You're a stand-up dude. You're pretty smart. Why are you here? You know. And the last time, I remember this guy named Merce. He said, Edwards, don't come back, bro. He's like, you're more than this. He was like, man, I'll be honest, a lot of these dudes are supposed to be here. He's like, you're not, man. You know. And I think a lot of that, just constantly hearing that, it helps you to think, okay, you know, I am bigger than the circumstances I'm in now. Because I think a lot of people, they don't think they're any, like, they don't see themselves past the circumstances they're in now. Because nobody tells them, you know. You know, nobody tells them. Nobody tells them like, yo, bro, you bigger than this. You know, that's why I tell people. I'm like, man, you bigger than this, bro. If I see somebody messing up, I'm like, man, you bigger than this, bro. You're bigger than what you're doing. You're too smart for this, man. You know, you're making mistakes that you're too smart to make. I try to breathe positivity into people. I try to speak positivity into people, you know. So, you know. All right. That's 50 minutes. So I ended up being an extra 20 minutes. Whoa! Watch the knee.
true. Who made that? Oh, my daughter made that when she was like 14. There we go. I want to go fishing this year. Take my son fishing. A good book to read is The Power of Broke. Being broke does give you power. Because you don't want to be broke. You will work hard. And not only that, but you kind of, I didn't grow up broke. But I eventually got put in a position where I was broke. This is an old term. People with money always say, they tell their kids, you're not rich. We are rich. You're broke. You got to make your own money. And it's true. I grew up we weren't rich. We were pretty comfortable. I grew up in a comfortable family. We weren't rich. We, as in the kids, me and my sister and I weren't rich. We were broke. You know, my family had money. We were broke. You know, so our job was to go out and make our own way. You know, with their help, of course. You know, if you need help, you know, my family is always there to help you. You know, even, you know, getting out of prison, they were there to help me. You know, my family is the reason why I'm not homeless anymore. Specifically my mother. You know, she gave me a shot. And I was like, no. She knew, she saw something in there that had changed. She was like, yeah, he's not the same Mark that he was before. He's not the same reckless kid that he was before. So she gave me a shot. You know. Sounds like my daughter's out, my other daughter. There's like no definition. It'll change. That's why I'm doing the cardio. Burn off fat. Burn off the fat so I could have the muscle. And you gotta watch your diet. You know, a lot of people think, oh, I can exercise, but I'm not able to lose weight. People say, oh, I'm dieting. And I'm not able to lose weight. You know, it's diet, exercise, and lifestyle. You know, it's a lifestyle of mobility, not sedentary. You know, so it's not just a lifestyle of eating this and that, although that is included. It's mobility. It's you go for a long walk with your kids. Just go for a long walk by yourself. You know, just being outside. You know, it's a lifestyle of exercise, being outside, you know, mobile, whatever. eating right. It's a lifestyle. It's a change of lifestyle. You know. It's not. I mean, it's called the sedentary lifestyle for a reason. Because you're inactive, you're not doing anything. You know. And I get it. I used to be a big dude. I used to be a big belly fat dude. I mean, my friends used to be like, so what do you do, Mark? Like, that's how big my belly was. What do you do? I used to work with this guy named Vishu. He would be like, Mark, you look like you're having a baby. Straight up. Indian people are straight up. They will not pull punches. They are straight up. They will tell you about yourself straight up. And it's not a judgment or anything. It's a matter of fact. Like, and he used to be like, and then eventually I lost weight. He was like, I remember when Mark was here, he used to walk around like, like he was pregnant. He said, look at him now. He's slim and trim and, yeah, so, like he saw the transformation. So. But yeah, he would straight up be like, Mark, when are you due? When are you going to have the baby? Like he did. And people would laugh or just be like, ooh. But I knew it didn't come from a mean place. It's just a matter of fact. Like, you got a big fat belly. Let's be honest. You know? I miss Easy, man. He's a good dude. I mean, he didn't die. We just went our separate ways. He went to one company, you know, I went to another. But he was a good dude. He was a really good dude, you know. He turned me on to a lot of stuff, man. His son used to make furniture. But what he would do is, he made automobile furniture. Like he would buy a car, turn it into a bed. Like take the frame, like he would turn it into a bed. He would buy like old like Ferrari pieces, like a piece of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. He would buy the car, take the parts, sell the parts he couldn't use, take the frame and everything, and make furniture out of it. And he would sell that stuff. Like he would buy it like dirt cheap because it was like a salvage or something. He'd buy it cheap. But he'd make money off of selling the parts online. And he had like a whole website and everything. He's actually pretty well known. Yeah, his son was like crazy with it. He was like, yeah, man, I taught my son how to do all that stuff. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I gave him the tools. He said he just ran with it. I was like, wow. And at the time, his daughter was in college. But his son, I wish I could find his website. I wish I could buy some stuff off him. He buys, like, it's like artwork. You know, if you buy his stuff, you won't even want to use it. It's like, it was like artwork. You know. Like, he made end tables with Ferrari rims. Made a set of end tables. You know. He welded the legs on them. I mean, he's got nice stuff, man. Really nice stuff. You know. I saw one. He had it's like a small couch. Kind of like, not a love seat. Like a smaller couch. But he made it out of a Mazda Miata. He somehow took the doors off. And the top was still on it, but it was the frame. He made it like a couch. Like a 3-seater couch. You know? And you know, a Miata is like facing this way. Well, he made it so 3 people face that way. Like sideways. You know, and you could like sit there and then there instead of like there if you're driving. He has some nice stuff. You know. It was like really high-end stuff. I've been at it for 13 minutes. Oh, hospital. I quit at 20. Ooh, AC just kicked on. Can't reach it. As I'm turning on that camera, I can't reach it. So yeah, it's crazy because now I'm getting so used to it that I don't know, man. I gotta work harder. I gotta work harder to build up the same sweat. You know. You know, like I gotta put on this 40 pounds of, this is like my daughter's old backpack. I use it just to work out with. But I gotta, you know, I always try to up the resistance or the difficulty, you know, to give me, you know, to kind of push myself, you know. At first I started riding that bike. I usually start off, if I stop for like an extended period of time, I start for 30 minutes, you know. Then that ends up being 40 minutes, you know. Then it ends up being 50 minutes to an hour. Then, like I just thought about it this recently. Like this week actually. So you know what? I'm gonna start riding the elliptical with this pack. You know. I actually have a weight vest. It's a 60-pound weight vest, it's over there. But this is just more accessible. And it's easier to put on. A 60-pound pack is just like floppy, you know. You know, this is just easier to put on. And the 60-pound one is like a little close to your body, and, you know, which there's, you know, there's a purpose for it. You know, but I like this because I don't need all that just to get on this. I just need, you know, some kind of heightened resistance. You know, if I need more weight, I get the 60-pound pack. You know. But the one thing I like about the 60-pound pack, has a little pouch weights where you could actually take them out. If I wanted it to be 40 pounds, I could take them out. So it's 40 pounds, I could add more instead of 45, all the way up to 60. It's got like little pouches in it. You know. This guy said, bro, is stupid. Bro, you can't even spell stupid. Oh, he said, are you wearing an army face? Vine said bro is stupid. Before you call somebody stupid, learn how to spell stupid. S-T-P-I-D, not S-T-U-P-E-T. Take a spelling class before you call somebody stupid. Are you in a... No, I wasn't. I was never in the military. I just like to lead a disciplined life. You know? You can't really get anything done unless you're disciplined. You know? You can't, like, you'll never get anything done if you aren't disciplined. You'll never get anything done, ever. You know? Got 1 minute. You know? My thing is, as far as discipline, I've always kind of been like, look, there's certain things I want done, man. You know, I've worked at being disciplined about things. I've worked at it. I've always worked at being disciplined. You know, I was never taught discipline in terms of structure, you know. So, worked at it, you know. One of the things I did that helped me was my phone has alarms 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and 7 o'clock, and 8 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1, 2, 3, 3:30, and 4, 4:30, 5, all the way up to 7 o'clock. After 7 o'clock, that's the last alarm. But I'm always cognizant of what time it is at all times. What I need to do in that time frame. How much time I have to do whatever. You know. I don't want to waste a day. You know. I don't like wasting days. You know. Even if it's just hanging out. You know, I hang out with my kids. You know, so I'll say, okay, I've got this 3-hour block. I'm just hanging out. You know, let's do whatever. You know, or after 7 o'clock alarm. And especially now, after 7 o'clock alarm, it's like, hey, come hang out, or we'll just hang out with the family, or whatever. You know. And sometimes I ignore it. I ignore the alarms because sometimes, like, I'd rather spend the time with whatever, fill in the blank. You know, my wife or my kids or whatever. You know, I'll just forego this schedule just to hang out. You know. But I don't like wasting time. I don't like that. That's 20 minutes. Alright, now. Let me take this pack off. It's leg day today. Whew. Actually, I don't take this pack off yet. Yep, whoever walks with the wise will become wise. But the companion of fools will suffer. Ow. One. Six. Two. Ah. Three. That's good. I'm listening to this thing. It's talking about cutting ties. Account, what up? Cutting ties with people who are just not good for you. I went through having to deal with that. Well, multiple times. There are a couple people I had to cut them off. They're just not, not good to associate. They weren't people who were good to associate with. And there's a sense of guilt about it. But they didn't really mean me any good. That's the only way I can really put it. I think I'll do squats tonight. Or deadlifts, I should say. Two. Three. Four. Ooh. Ooh. Calves burn. I want to move that fridge, that mini fridge. I don't know where I want to move it, but I want to move it. I'm not comfortable with it being there. I had a little table that mini fridge would have been perfect on. But obviously don't have it. I don't like that mini fridge right now. Alright, 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. Ooh! Ooh! Ooh, my legs. Oof. Steven. It's 4. 1. 2. 3. 4. Ah! Oof. Alright, take this pack off. Alright. Yeah. Ah, we got a grocery delivery. Yeah, my son getting a grocery delivery. Actually, grab them off of that. keep it light. And somebody's still out there. Nick, Jay, it's everything? Okay. I'm gonna say that's all we ordered. One thing I hate about working out is your boxers getting sucked up your butt. Keep it light. You don't realize. It's good. Thank you. All right. You don't realize how much strength you lose until you start trying to lift the same things you used to lift before. You know? No, it's not Thursday, Ma. It's Wednesday. Isn't it? No, it is Thursday. You're right. Collie. You still there, Mom? Hold on. Are you still there, Mom?
Yeah.
Never mind. I think Grandma got off the phone. Go call Grandma, man. Go call Grandma. Oh, I was gonna say, why is it so humid in here? It's humid because it's raining and raining and raining. know my right armpit always stinks. My left armpit never stinks. That's weird. How long has it been? Hour, it's 131 minutes. That's over. That's over 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 11 minutes. It's 7:30. Yeah. I don't know how many sets was that. I want to say 3. I don't know if it was 2 or 3. I don't remember. I hate that you can't see the bottom. My wife wants to work out her lower body, her legs. She needs to get on that. I just realized that. Yeah, she needs to get on that. Last set. 6, 7, 8. That's the last set. Yeah. Take it easy. Gotta get used to it again. I really should take this off. It makes it hard to walk around. I think I will. As much as I'd like to keep working out, I got stuff to do. Been working out for 2 hours. I got stuff to do. I got a ton of stuff to do. All right, guys. Alright guys, I gotta take it down, I gotta pack it up, I gotta get in the shower. Yeah, record. have all that recording equipment for nothing. That's what I do. I give online drum lessons. Almost fell. I give online drum lessons. And make samples. I do recordings. People send me stuff. I record. I do some mixing. Mostly recording drums. So yeah, you know, lessons, recording. You know, I do gigs. You know, yeah, I do a lot more. You know, yeah. But yeah, what you see is you see consistency. You're like, man, this guy's always on YouTube, or he's always, you know, he's either working out or he's playing drums on YouTube. You don't see the time in between that. I do a lot, man. You know. You know, there's a lot. What you see is you see me consistently doing the same thing every day. You know, that's what you're seeing. You know, you see consistency. You know, it's like you might see a guy jogging. He might jog twice a day. He jogs in the morning and jogs at night. Like, man, this dude don't, you know, what comes to mind is this dude don't do nothing else but jog. He does. He does a lot of other things besides jog. What you're seeing, you're not seeing him doing that all the time. You're seeing the consistency. You know? So, but yeah.